Nicole, my husband paid for everything, and I was a stay-at-home mom. Do I get anything if I get divorced?
In Florida, you definitely do. Everything acquired during the marriage is equally divided, and you also may have a claim for alimony.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we will explore three stories that are sure to spark discussion. First, we'll look at a woman who claims that housewives should receive 100% of the assets, savings, and a lifetime pension after a divorce. Next, we'll analyze the response from another woman who disagrees with this idea. Finally, we'll hear from a woman who argues that being financially dependent on your husband is a bad decision. We want you to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're chasing 150,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We also want to thank everyone who supports the project with their super chats and shares their experiences in the comments. That's what makes this community grow. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a single video. All right, let's get started.
50-50 divorces aren't fair. Stay-at-home moms should be given 100% of everything in divorce and should be awarded alimony for life. First, a little bit of data for background. 80% of stay-at-home moms have zero retirement, which is why elderly females are the most vulnerable demographic in America today, with higher poverty rates than almost anybody. Only around 17% of alimony is ever collected, and that percentage is not necessarily indicative of that alimony being paid on time. And less than 40% of child support is ever paid. And again, some of that 40% is child support that's paid long after the children are grown. 60% of men financially do better after divorce, while 47% of women and children experience poverty post-divorce. So here's some numbers. We're going to do some math from my marriage. I was Mormon trad wife, married to my spouse for 24 years, and I calculated an annual total of $150,000 income. Now, this may or may not be completely accurate. There were years that we would have home sales in addition to our business revenue and have a $500,000 year. And then there were a few years when I was suffering from an ovarian tumor that our income was considerably lower and we had a medical bankruptcy. But as a benchmark here, with $150,000 annual total, the 24 years of our marriage, my husband had an income of just under $3 million. While I personally didn't have a bank account and didn't have access to this money, I supported his ability to earn this money. At the time of our divorce, because of marital waste, because my husband had spent all of the money on women and motorcycles and just garbage, we didn't have a home. We were renting. We didn't own our vehicles. Everything was financed. And the only asset that we did have was cash in the bank, which he took and hid. So when we divorced, I had nothing. I did get half of everything that we had, which was some Rubbermaid boxes full of camping equipment and pool toys and some of the furniture, including IKEA beds and some antiques. But let's say, like many people who have been married for some length of time, that we had assets to divide, and we had divided everything 50-50. And let's say that I took with me $100,000 from the sale of a home and vehicles and other things. After 24 years of Jake earning $3.6 million, for me to walk away with $100,000 isn't fair. As is the case with all stay-at-home moms, my husband left our marriage with a career, with a resume, with job skills in the real world that didn't disappear because he was divorced. In fact, he had more time to work and could focus on his career had he wanted to. The year we got divorced, Jake earned $200,000.
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
So, according to you, you deserve a lifetime pension and all of this man's money just because you were married to him. If that's the case, you might as well buy yourself a slave. This is the classic mindset of a woman who believes that a man's success is tied to having been married to her. Jake earned $200,000 a year because he worked for it, not because you were at home. The man is above the national average, and yet you still try to take credit for his achievements. You chose that life. Nobody forced you. And nothing guarantees that, had you not gotten married, you would have reached a similar level on your own. The proof is that after the divorce, you went back to being a housewife with another man. So, your ex-husband wasn't so bad after all, was he? On top of that, You walked away with $100,000, which is far more than the average savings of millions of people in this country, along with a vehicle and other assets. But of course, none of that counts, right? You don't mention the medical bills he paid, your 3 meals a day, your indulgences, your trips, the help to your family, all of it funded by Jake the bad guy. And now you come up with the narrative that women fall into poverty after divorce. But it's funny how they never let the kids stay with the father, because that way, they don't get child support. But let's keep up with this absurd story, because there's still a lot more to see.
At the time of our divorce, I was a stay-at-home mom and my income was zero. As I previously stated, we had no assets to divide, so the money that I took from our marriage was also zero. Which is why I do videos about how that I had to borrow money from friends to put gas in my car, and I fed my kids with boxes of food from Catholic Charities and the Mormon Bishop Storehouse. To compensate for the income disparity, my husband was court ordered to pay around $2,600 a month in alimony and child support for a total of about $31,000 a year, making my income over $168,000 less than his. By the way, my ex-husband only actually paid alimony the first month after our divorce, and then intermittently for a little bit after that, I no longer receive any alimony. Jake's income, by the way, represents time, money, resources, talents, and work that I put into his career throughout that 24 years. But of course, my name was not on the paycheck. By the way, I had full custody of the kids and 100% responsibility for them. They lived with me all of the time. So if my husband had paid alimony for that 5 years, I would have received over that 5-year time span about $156,000. Had Jake continued at the job that he was working when we divorced for approximately $200,000 a year, in that same 5-year time span, Jake would have earned $1 million. After being a stay-at-home mom since age 20, at the time of my divorce, I was only capable of earning minimum wage. If I take a $15 an hour wage and project it from age 45 to a retirement at around age 70, my earning potential for the rest of my life until I retire is about $750,000. My husband, on the other hand, with the career and the job skills and the resume, etc., in that same 25-year time span, would earn $5 million. The only way that this math adds up is if a man is not your plan. Don't get married until you're at least 25. Don't have babies until you have graduated from college or trade school or something and are established in a career. Don't blend all of your finances. Don't support his career. And absolutely no assumed labor based on gender in relationships. Should you choose to have a baby, split it 50-50. I'm going to take off the first 9 months so that I can breastfeed and recuperate from the birth, and then you're going to take over the next 9 months. I have plenty of male business associates who actually bring their babies to work. Separate bank accounts, and should you take the very dangerous risk of being a stay-at-home mom for any length of time, your working spouse should be paying you a monthly salary, which goes into an account that a family law attorney has designated as just yours with a prenup, so you aren't walking away with zero. I hope that this little math lesson demonstrates for everyone that 50-50 isn't fair. Not for a stay-at-home mom type of situation, because the men take job skills and future revenue and earnings for the rest of their lives that you missed out on because you were doing a very important job that didn't generate revenue and didn't come with a retirement account. And even if you got the house and the car and the timeshare and all of the retirement accounts and everything, chances are the math would not add up to make your investment into your marriage and your family financially pay off, which is why
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
In short, what really bothers you is that you didn't come out of the marriage as a millionaire. The ironic part is that you talk about Jake as if he were your project, something you created, but it's something you could never achieve on your own. You tell women not to be housewives, but you went right back to being one after the divorce. Why don't you study and pursue a career? Oh, right, because it's more convenient to have someone else support you for life. You complain that the kids can't be with their father, but conveniently, that ensures you receive child support. You wanted to avoid responsibilities, live worry-free, and become a millionaire, but you weren't willing to work for it. This whole, "I'll be empowered and have it all" speech always ends the same way. Women who fail to climb the corporate ladder and end up below the poverty line. The real problem is that after the divorce, Jake stopped financing the lifestyle you wanted. You couldn't convince the judge to give you more, and since he didn't have many assets in his name, your plans fell apart. Don't get mad because you played your cards and he had a better hand. But don't worry, the next woman has a response that will surely give you something to think about.
50-50 divorces aren't fair. Stay-at-home moms should be given 100% of everything in divorce and should be awarded alimony for life. First, a little bit of data for background. 80% of stay-at-home moms have zero retirement, which is why elderly females are the most vulnerable.
This kind of mindset is just a me mentality, and she's not in it for the we in the family dynamic. Because why the hell are you in a marriage if you're already thinking about your exit plan? Because thinking about your retirement or any money that you would have in case this man is not around or in case you get divorced means that you're already thinking about it. And you think about it enough, eventually you're going to follow through with it. And why the hell would you be entitled to 100% when he's busting his ass every single day to give you everything that you want? And it's not his fault that you resent having children because you feel like you missed out on life. It's not his fault that you feel like you need to get paid for having his children. Do you see how selfish and delusional and entitled that is? He doesn't get paid for providing for you. He goes to a job. He misses milestones. He misses family events. He misses time with his family in order to give you what you need, and you just want to take it from him. Like, make it make sense. And imagine committing to somebody and telling them that you want to spend the rest of your life with them and committing to them in a marriage, but then simultaneously, when you feel resentment and you're upset at your lifestyle, you want to destabilize him to take 100% of everything that you guys have built together. That's selfish as hell. And what kind of person are you to say to yourself, oh, I want this man to suffer because I'm suffering, because I'm just a miserable ass human being? That's not love. That's not compassion. That's not empathy. And are you really looking at the best interest of your family and your kids if you're trying to destabilize the other side of the fence? Like, be for real. And in terms of alimony, if men are expected to pay their way after a divorce, then you should only get alimony for 1 freaking year, get your shit together, grow up, get a job, make your own money, and stop depending on a man that you hated so much that you decided to break your family up and leave it behind all for what, a freaking paycheck? Well, congratulations. Now you actually have to go work and stop being a mooch and a lazy ass wife and a human being to someone that tried to take care of you and have a family with you. Okay, bye.
I completely agree. Misery loves company, and this woman is the perfect example. Her life is a constant mess, not because of her ex-husband, but because of her inability to take responsibility for her own decisions. She chose to marry that man, but now she blames him for everything wrong in her life. And of course, as I always say, responsibility is kryptonite for many women. This isn't just one person's story. It's what happens in many marriages. Women who, after divorce, try to destroy their ex-husband instead of dividing things fairly. They drain all the assets, keep the house, take part of the business, and grab money they don't know how to manage, all because of their ego. And then what happens? The house they won in the divorce becomes too expensive for them to maintain. The business goes under, and everyone ends up in poverty, including the kids. Why? Because it never crosses their minds to leave the man in a good position, so at least the children can have some stability. But no, it's better to sink him and the entire family just to feel like a winner. This mentality isn't love, it's not empathy, and it's certainly not thinking about the children's well-being. This isn't a mother, it's a saboteur.
I don't understand the argument that moms, working moms, say to stay-at-home moms, and this is typically a working mom to stay-at-home mom or working dad to stay-at-home mom conversation. Like, I would never be able to financially rely on someone else. Like, what if he died? What if he leaves you? One, not planning on those things, so I don't have to worry about my husband leaving me because he's not going to. Cool. Two, if he dies, one, we have life insurance. Two, I would obviously pivot. Even if I was working full time, if my husband passed away, like, obviously I would pivot. But let's talk about the financial freedom thing. Like, my husband makes the amount of money he is able to make because I am able to stay at home with our children and watch them. Because by me not working saves us over $50,000 a year in childcare. I'll just put it at that. But he relies on me so much too. Like the man without me wouldn't have clean clothes. He wouldn't have food in his fridge. He wouldn't have a relationship with his children. And not because he doesn't try, because he doesn't have time. He works too much. And I'm not saying he works too much, but he works too much to do those things. So we adjusted our lives to where I could do those things. But these kinds of comments, I work and I've juggled all that happily. It is such a dig. It is such a, well, you're just a lazy piece of shit that you don't want to enjoy it all. And it's just rude. So Sarah, I'm very happy for you that you have financial freedom, but it's probably good because you're a little rude. And I don't know if I would want to stay married to someone that makes comments like this to strangers on the internet.
I would never depend on a man, they say, but they depend on a job that, with a single medical bill, can leave them below the poverty line. They criticize women who choose to stay home, yet they themselves are tied to a job that, if it disappears, leaves them with nothing. Today, there are remote jobs, AI, and YouTube tutorials to learn new skills, but they'd rather point fingers at the woman who takes care of her family while contributing to the household economy. The irony is this. I know women who never had kids or got married, and now, at 50, they depend on government aid or low-paying jobs. But the bad one is the woman who chose to stay at home, build something with her husband, and secure her future. The priorities are completely distorted.
Rely on someone else. Like, what if he died? What if he leaves you? One, not planning on those.
Over 50% of marriages in the US end in divorce, and I can assure you that nobody's sitting on their wedding day and thinking, oh, we're planning to get divorced. I chose to stitch this because this is exactly me when I was 26 or 27. I had 2 young kids. I would remember walking into a thrift store of all places, and I saw one of my mom's old friends, and she was like, oh, how are you? They're so cute. What are you up to these days? Like, what are you doing for a living? And I was like, this is what I'm doing for a living. I'm staying home with the kids. And she was like, oh, and like she had this cautionary like look on her face as she very judgy said to me, well, just be really careful. You know, you don't want to be in a situation where you're reliant on someone. Make sure that you don't have any gaps in your resume and you're keeping your skill set up. Well, clearly I wasn't. I had just said I was staying home with my kids. So I am just offended. I'm like, well, that's not necessary. I mean, we have a really great relationship and we're really happily married. We'll be married forever. 5 years later, I really had to eat my hat, so to speak, because I was miserably married, like in a miserable situation where I could not get out of this marriage. Now, I had given 15 years of my life to this man, and I had poured all of my talent and all of my energy into his business, building his business, because I was staying home with the kids, and this was the way we were making an income together. The problem is that I was so naive that in my mind, we were just going to be happy forever. That was the only choice. That was the only option. But I never stopped and thought, what happens if I decide that I want to be out of this relationship? Can I take care of myself and my kids on my own? And the answer was, well, no. I mean, I figured it out and it was a really hard road. But what I wish that I could tell myself back then was shake, shake, shake. Listen to the lady who's a little bit older than you.
Stop it. Get some help.
More than 50% of marriages end in divorce, but what's often left out is that 80% of divorce filings come from women, a figure that rises to 90% among professionals. And let's not forget that 43% of divorces happen when men are between 45 and 50 years old, almost always right when they're approaching retirement. The pattern is clear. Just when the man is at his peak financial stability, that's when the blow comes. And the outcome is predictable. Women walk away with 50% of everything: the house, the kids, the savings, even the retirement fund, and in many cases, alimony as well. But of course, starting over with $100,000 and everything financed must be extremely difficult, right? What's funny is that, in many cases, they don't even need to spend that money because they already have a new man ready to step in as the provider. But let's keep up with this narrative, because the absurdity doesn't end here.
Maybe she has some life experience that you don't know yet. And that's okay. Sometimes people give us advice that's unsolicited and it comes from a place of bitterness. And we immediately just say, oh my gosh, we don't want it. A, maybe we just don't want to hear it because we don't want it to be true. Or B, sometimes it does come from a place of bitterness, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it comes from a place of just cautionary living a little bit more than you, however old you are. And they're just giving this little piece of caution. Like, I wish that I had known how much I was risking by having such a big gap in my resume, or by pouring so much of myself into building his career and not taking care of my own career. Because now that I am 5 years down the line, or however many years down the line, and this unimaginable thing happened, I'm now in a situation that I never thought I was going to be in, and I have to take care of myself. And that's why you see so many older women entering the workforce when their kids go off to college and their husband decides that they want to end the relationship now, and he's going off with a young secretary or whoever, and now they are having to start their career at square one because they've given their whole lives to stay at home and to propel his career. So he's flying high, has the great career, making fantastic money, and now she might be getting some money in child support or in alimony if she's lucky. All of this to say, just be smart. Like, understand the risks. If you want to stay home with your kids, fantastic. More power to you. I can tell you right now, I still don't regret staying home with my kids. I still cherish the fact that I had that time with my kids, even though I didn't do it right and didn't have all my ducks in a row. And I definitely put myself in a situation where I didn't have choices and I had to dig myself out. I still don't regret doing it. I don't regret staying home with my kids. And I would still encourage other people to do the same thing. I would just encourage them to educate themselves and to make sure that they have a partner who is making sure that they are financially stable and that they would be able to take care of themselves in the instance of the unimaginable. Whatever you do not give up your career entirely, because when you give up your ability to take care of yourself and your children, you are giving up the ability to have the choice to leave something that's not serving you.
When a man gets married, he knows he's signing a contract that could ruin him, but he still does it for the family and the children. He knows that everything he builds is at risk. She says she gave 15 years of her life, but he gave them 2, working 10-hour days, missing out on his children's childhood. And when the divorce comes, he loses the house, the savings, half his salary, and his relationship with his kids. They say, a man can bounce back. But that only applies when you're in your 30s or 40s. At 50 or 60, without a house, dealing with health issues, and in a job market that prefers to replace you, it's a whole different story. And the worst part is, nobody cares, because he's a man. He should be fine. But the reality is far from that. Many men end up homeless, in shelters, or completely ruined, while the woman tells the story from the perspective of the victim. We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, here are some questions for you. What do you think about the idea of a woman receiving 100% of the assets and a permanent alimony after a divorce? What do you think would be a fair arrangement in a divorce? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to create more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video from The Wall.